I'm also a Ph.D. student at the LMU of Munich, and the study I'm presenting you now in the research brief was created together with Moritz, the previous speaker, and with Professor Markus Meyer. So the theoretical background and the analysis methods introduced in the talk before will basically be the same here. You might know the book cover on my first slide. The Secret is a famous example for a book dealing with the law of attraction. The book states the cosmic law that we attract into our lives what we send out through our thoughts. And as the title of this study, You Get What You Are claims, we assume that the becoming of materialization is not affected by the conscious intention itself, but by the preconscious state of mind of an observer. So we suppose that the influence of the motivated observer in our study must have the form of an indirect causality emerging from the common ground of mind and matter. To measure this preconscious motivational state as our independent factor, we applied the incongruency questionnaire, a reliable instrument based on Grave's consistency theory. Similar to other theories, there are 4 basic psychic needs defined: attachment and connection, self-esteem, enhancement and protection, orientation and control, and pleasure maximalization or distress avoidance. And the incongruency questionnaire asks whether needs related to these 4 basic needs are fulfilled in the last time. Like, for example, in the last time, others show their appreciation for me, from 1, far too less, to 5, completely sufficient. If the basic psychic needs are frustrated, they become more and more urgent through the connection with strong emotions. This state is so-called high incongruency of needs. And as the basic human needs are, according to Grave, the unconscious origin of the developed goals, we consider high incongruency of needs to serve as a strong indicator for subconsciously active core beliefs. Therefore, we hypothesized that this individual perception is also reflected by a non-random outcome while observing stimuli addressing these deprived needs versus neutral ones, selected by a quantum number generator. So we expected an initial micro-PK effect for the target group of participants who exhibit high incongruency characteristics, but not within the subsample of individuals who show low incongruency. The dividing point was the standardized average value given in the manual. So for targets that were designed to resemble an approach-motivated way of satisfying a need, we expected that participants with high incongruency would show less positive stimuli than chance suggests, as they feel they have a lack of positive events in their lives. And for stimuli that were designed to resemble an avoidance-oriented way of satisfying a need, we expected high incongruency participants to show more negative stimuli than chance suggests, as they feel they have too much of negative events going on in their lives. We conducted a first pre-registered experiment in our lab with a target sample of 300 to 350. We chose a Bayesian approach with a base factor of 10 as significance criterion. From a wider perspective, we assumed the micro-PK effect to be volatile following a systematic oscillative pattern across participants over time. But this wasn't expected to be the case within this given target sample size. We designed a specific micro-PK task for the 3 basic needs: attachment, self-esteem, and control, trying out different ways of operationalization concerning stimulus formats, tasks, and approach versus avoidance-motivated focus. The 4th need for pleasure was excluded as it could not be precisely enough operationalized in our study. Each micro-PK task comprised 10 trials of stimulus presentation on a screen. For each trial, a coherent G chose between a need-related and a neutral stimulus. The number of need-related stimuli displayed served as dependent variable. You can see the structure of all 3 tasks here. The second micro-PK task, for example, focused on the need for self-esteem protection and was designed avoidance-oriented, using rated derogatory adjectives like dumb or ugly, and control stimuli that were neutrally rated like striped or triangled. And participants only had to look attentively at the words without giving any further responses. So you can see the results here. For the target group with a sample size of 133, a Bayesian 1 sample t-test revealed anecdotal evidence for H1 with a base factor of 2.95 only for self-esteem related stimuli. None of the other two effects reached any definite amount of evidence. As predicted, no deviations from chance showed up in a two-tailed Bayesian 1 sample t-test for the control group. Several limitations concerning the operationalization of the other two tasks might explain why the effect failed to appear there. The design of the micro-PK task for self-esteem protection seems to be more suitable, as words are very concretely and precisely addressing the certain need, with leaving less room for individual interpretations than pictures do. As none of the effects in experiment 1 reached our statistical criterion of evidence, we decided to continue data collection until strong evidence for or against the postulated effect is reached. Furthermore, we only focused on the promising outcomes of the self-esteem protection tasks for economic reasons. Apart from that, the procedure and analysis strategy stayed exactly the same. Since the sample size would now be extended considerably, we additionally assumed a decline for the further data collection after an initially strong evidence had been reached. To learn more about decline effects in micro-PK experiments, we decided to continue data collection beyond reaching strong evidence, though optional stopping would be allowed in Bayesian statistics. And as you can see in the graph, our criterion for confirming the H1 was initially reached within the target group with a sample size of 236. And shortly thereafter, a decline to a final result of anecdotal evidence for H1 to a base factor of 2.24 occurred. Again, within the control subsample, no substantial deviations from chance were observed at any time point. This you can see in the two-tailed one sample t-test on the left, and on the right there is a one-tailed version of it, just to have a better comparison of the curve of the control and the target group. In sum, 1 out of 3 original experiments showed a significant effect, and strong evidence was reached, but shortly thereafter declined to anecdotal evidence. So the question is now, is this an outstanding outcome? Or can this effect also be produced by chance? To test the systematic trend in the data against chance fluctuations, further post-hoc analysis within both experimental group in comparison to 10,000 simulations were conducted. Highest base factor in the target group is 10.72. Only 3.28% of all simulations reached a higher base factor at any point. The control group's highest base factor equals 2.10, which is surpassed by 26.11% of simulations. The curve's energy for the target group is surpassed by only 1.94% of simulations. In contrast, the energy of the control group is surpassed by 17.67% of simulations. In the FFT, the target subsample shows amplitudes higher than 95% of simulations at 81, so 68.64% of all frequencies. The probability for that is 4%. In contrast, no frequencies show a significant amplitude size at any frequency in the control group. In conclusion, these analyses show that the data of the target group are highly different from chance fluctuations, whereas the data of the control group are not. So even within 3 experiments, it's very unlikely to find such a curve by chance. This result suggests that core effectively latent subconscious beliefs can express themselves through deviations from quantum randomness if they are precisely triggered by an adequate micro-PK task. Thank you very much for your attention. Please feel free to ask questions now.